Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is, as always, to take these huge, intimidating intellectual mountains and, well, show you the best and quickest paths to the summit.
And today we are tackling a big one, maybe one of the biggest.
Definitely. We're jumping into Friedrich Nietzsche's, also Spoke Zarathustra, or the Spoke Zarathustra.
It's such an overwhelming book. I mean, it's written like a religious epic, but its whole purpose is to just dismantle every religious and moral idea that came before it.
Right. So our goal today, our mission, is to translate that core philosophy. We're going to cover all the major concepts you've probably heard of.
Things like the Ubermensch, the will to power, eternal recurrence.
Exactly. And we want to do it conversationally. So think of this as us sitting down for, I don't know, a very long coffee, trying to get to the heart of what this book is really about.
A shortcut to the core ideas without having to wrestle with the pretty dense 19th century German prose.
Absolutely. This is not a textbook reading, it's an excavation. And to do that, we have to start where Nietzsche starts, with his guide Zarathustra.
Who begins his journey completely alone. The source material tells us he spent 10 years on a mountain just absorbing wisdom.
And when he finally decides to come down, it's not because he's lonely or empty, it's the opposite. He became, and this is a key German word, Überdrüssig.
Overfull.
Overfull, yeah. He's so full of wisdom, he feels like he might burst.
And that concept of being overfull is just so important to the whole book. He compares himself to a bee that has collected way too much honey. He has this surplus, this bounty, and he feels this compulsion to share it.
Otherwise, he says he might choke on it.
Exactly, which immediately sets him apart from, the traditional wise old sage on the mountain who guards his secrets. For Zarathustra, the joy of wisdom is only complete when it's given away.
And his very first conversation, if you can call it that, sets up the whole drama of the book. He's not talking to a person, he's talking to the sun.
Right, the great star. He looks at the sun and he says, "What would your happiness be if you didn't have those you shine upon?"
It's this beautiful idea of cosmic dependency. He's basically saying, your joy comes from giving your light away.
And he sees himself in that. He's become his own sun, full of light. And now he has to descend to find someone to shine on. He needs humanity to receive his wisdom so that he can feel that joy of the giver.
But on his way down, he runs into someone. He meets a saint in the forest.
And this meeting is crucial. It really defines the difference between the old way of thinking, the old goodness, and the radical new path Zarathustra is proposing.
So what's this saint like?
He's a cautionary figure, in a way. He lives in the woods alone, and he spends his life praising God. He sings, he weeps, he laughs, he grumbles. It's a perfect picture of this very internal, personal piety.
It's all between him and his God.
Exactly. And when Zarathustra says he's on his way to find humankind, the saint is suspicious. He warns him against it. He asks him, what gift are you possibly bringing them?
And Zarathustra's reply is quiet, but it's loaded with meaning. He just sort of moves on, but you realize it's something profound.
He realizes the saint is living a life of withdrawal. He's keeping his virtue locked away in the forest. It's a static goodness.
Whereas Zarathustra's goodness has to be active. It has to be dynamic. He isn't going to humankind to save them in the old way.
No, not at all. He's going to challenge them to save themselves. The stage is set right there for a philosophy that demands action, risk, and a total commitment to this world, not some other one.
Okay, let's unpack that mission. Zarathustra comes down from the mountain, from this peak of solitary thought, and he walks into the valley of human reality. And his first great proclamation is about the Ubermensch.
Right, the Ubermensch.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most famous concept from the book and almost certainly the most misunderstood.
Everyone thinks Superman.
Everyone thinks Superman. Forget the capes, forget the flying. It is not Superman. The much better translation is the Overman, or maybe even the Overhuman.
So it's not a person with powers, it's a goal.
It is a goal that humanity must set for itself. This is Zarathustra's central teaching. Man is, and this is a direct quote, etwas, das überwunden werden soll.
Something that shall be overcome.
Exactly. We are not the final product. We're a messy, incomplete, transitional phase, and our highest moral duty is to transcend this state we're in.
It is not a passive thing, is it? It's not just waiting for evolution to do its thing.
Not at all. That's the key. It's about willing ourselves forward. And to make this really hit home, he uses that famous ape analogy.
Let's get into that. What does the ape represent for us?
The ape, for modern humans, is a laughingstock, or maybe a painful shame. When we look at an ape, we see a shadow of what we were. Something. Well, something primitive, something we've moved past.
Okay, I'm with you.
Zarathustra insists that modern man must become exactly that to the Overman, a joke, a painful embarrassment. The future human should look back at us, at our politics, our anxieties, our need for comfort, and feel a kind of contempt.
Wow. So the change he's demanding is huge, a complete spiritual and psychological overcoming. The German word is Überwinden.
It is. It's a complete reevaluation. And this really highlights what he sees as the biggest obstacle to our future, our current complacency. We're too comfortable with who we are.
And this leads right to his core command.
Excellent.
All this energy of overcoming, where does it go? Not up to heaven.
No, absolutely not. It goes down into the earth. The Overman is der Sinn der Erde.
The sense of the earth, the meaning of the earth.
Yes. This is his radical break with, 2,000 years of Western philosophy and religion. The goal is not to get saved and go to heaven. The goal is to create meaning and perfection right here on this planet.
So his first command is to be faithful to the earth.
Remain faithful to the earth and distrust anyone who preaches, as he puts it, otherworldly hopes, Überirdischen Hoffnungen.
And he has a name for these people, really, a really harsh one. Gift mischer.
Poison mixers.
Poison mixers. So what is the poison they're mixing?
The poison is distraction. It's the whole idea that your suffering here on earth doesn't matter because you'll be rewarded somewhere else in an afterlife.
It takes the pressure off.
It takes all the pressure off. By teaching people to focus on a perfect heaven or a divine judge, these poison mixers divert all the incredible creative energy that we should be using to make this life, this world, better. They make earthly life feel secondary, like a waiting room.
Something you just have to endure.
Right, something to be endured rather than affirmed and transformed. He calls them contemners of life, dying ones, who make the earth itself weary of them because they reject its fundamental reality.
This takes us deeper then into his critique of the Hinterwäldler.
The afterworldly ones, those who believe in these other realms.
And he doesn't treat their belief in God or heaven as just a philosophical mistake. He treats it like a medical symptom.
That's the classic Nietzschean move, isn't it? He psychoanalyzes morality. He asks, okay, why would a person invent a heavenly realm? And his answer is that these ideas are symptoms of a sick body and a tired soul. They're born from suffering, from weariness, and from this deep desire for an end. A toad sponge.
The death leap.
A death leap. When life feels too painful or the weight of just existing is too heavy, the tired mind invents a perfect, painless, static place where it can finally rest.
So if your body is in despair, it projects this perfect, immaterial escape hatch.
Yes. And he looks at the history of it. He says, historically, the soul looked down on the body with contempt. It wanted to escape it, to make it, lean, ghastly, starved through asceticism.
Zarathustra flips that on its head.
He says that contempt for the body was itself a kind of cruelty, a sickness that was masking a deep psychological weakness. It was a need for miserable comfort, bärmliches Behagen. So the afterlife isn't born from some divine truth. It's born from the body's sickness and the spirit's fatigue.
Which completely reframes the whole idea of morality.
Right.
If heaven was just a projection of weakness, then the idea of sinning against a heavenly father, it just becomes irrelevant.
It becomes totally irrelevant. And he says, since God is dead, which for him is a cultural event, not a literal one, the worst sacrilege is no longer against God. It's against the earth, and der Erde zu frivolum.
To sin against the earth.
Right. And the new wisdom he's teaching, the wisdom of the self, the selbst, this integrated being of body and soul, it teaches us to honor the body, to honor the earth, and to see them as the only source of real values. The goal is to have an earth head.
An earth head.
Meaning our intelligence, our creativity, all our meaning-making has to be rooted entirely in the reality of this planet.
So the body, which was once this cage the soul was trying to break out of, is now the temple. It's where the new values are created.
It is the ultimate affirmation of our material mortal existence. If you reject the body and the earth, you're rejecting life itself. The path to the Overman requires you to say yes to everything about earthly experience, even the sickness, even the suffering, because those are the forces you have to overcome.
And this affirmation, it requires a kind of brutal honesty about where we are right now.
Oh, absolutely. Which leads to one of his most powerful metaphors for humanity. He says man is a dirty stream. Schmutziger strong.
A dirty stream, full of imperfections, poverty, and filth.
It's a deeply anti-romantic image. That stream is all of our accumulated history, all our small-mindedness, all the contaminated values we've inherited, even our current ideas of happiness or reason or virtue. He says that's all part of the filth.
Wait, hold on. why is our virtue or our reason considered filth? That seems extreme.
Because it's stagnant. Our current virtues are often just, social obedience. They stop us from doing something truly great or dangerous. Our reason is often just a tool we use to get comfortable and secure, not to take creative risks.
So if your only goal is that miserable comfort you mentioned earlier,
Then everything you do to get it, all your little compromises, your small virtues, it's all contaminated because it lacks greatness. It lacks the will to overcome.
so the Ubermensch then has to be the sea, the mirror, the thing that can receive this dirty stream.
Exactly. The sea is the purifying force. It's so vast, so deep that it can absorb everything about the human condition, all the filth, the contempt, the poverty of our reason, and it doesn't become unclean itself. The Overman has that capacity for immense affirmation.
But to become the sea, you first have to experience something. The hour of great contempt.
Yes, the great content.
What does that actually feel like?
It's that moment when you look at your own life, even the things you're proud of, your happiness, and it all becomes nauseating. It becomes zumeko. It's a kind of self-disgust that forces you to change.
It's realizing that your current comfort, your current self, is just too small.
It's too small, too contained, and completely unworthy of the potential you feel inside you. And that self-scorn isn't self-hatred. It's an active, powerful contempt for the current you. And that is the absolute necessary fuel for self-overcoming.
So, if the Ubermensch is the destination, the Three Metamorphoses describe the journey. And it's not a simple flip of a switch. It's a grueling three-act play for the soul.
It really is. And we have to start with the stage that honestly defines most of human civilization. The camel.
The camel, the burden bearer.
The spirit's first stage is the camel, the Camel. And it symbolizes this strong, reverent spirit that actually loves heavy duty. This is the disciplined person, the dutiful person, the one who hears the command, thou shalt do soulst, and kneels to accept it.
You see this everywhere, right? In traditional morality, religion, the military.
Yeah.
The idea that discipline and taking on burdens is the highest virtue.
It is. The camel actively seeks out the heaviest loads. And the list of burdens Zarathustra gives is fascinating. It's not just about, physical labor.
What else is on the list?
Intellectual and moral burdens, like humiliating yourself to hurt your own pride, or nourishing yourself on the acorns and grass of knowledge.
Acorns and grass of knowledge. That sounds pretty unappetizing.
It is. It suggests the knowledge the camel gathers is necessary, but it's basic, it's dry, it's the rules, the facts you need to learn to function in the world.
So it's the grunt work of learning.
It's the grunt work. And crucially, the camel is also willing to step into the dirty water of truth, no matter what cold frogs and hot toads are in there. It confronts reality. It endures sickness. It sends away anyone who tries to comfort it. It even loves those who despise it. It just internalizes every single duty society can throw at it.
So the camel is this necessary first phase of endurance, of obedience. It's about learning to carry weight, building up that spiritual muscle.
Yes, it's preparation. It's how you build strength. But it is fundamentally passive. It's receptive. And once the camel has loaded itself up with all the heaviest duties, it rushes into its own desert.
And the desert is solitude.
It's solitude. And it's in that solitude that the weight of all those burdens becomes completely unbearable, and that forces the next transformation.
The desert is where the spirit figures out that just carrying burdens doesn't lead to creation. It just leads to exhaustion.
Exactly. And that's where the second metamorphosis happens. The spirit becomes a lion, a
The
loo.
liberator.
The lion is the spirit of liberation. It wants freedom. It wants to be the lord of its own desert. And it has realized that all those burdens it carried were commands from something outside of itself, so it finds its great enemy in the desert, the dragon.
Let's talk about this dragon. It's covered in scales, and on every single scale is a 1,000-year-old value that says, thou shalt.
The dragon is the total weight of civilization's moral commandments. It's tradition, custom, absolute authority. It's everything that tells you what you must do, what you must believe, how you must live.
And the lion's superpower, so to speak.
Its crucial power is the ability to say a holy no. A Hylage's 9, it roars no at this dragon.
This is the Great Rebellion, the rejection of all imposed morality.
It is the necessary stage of negation. The lion fights the dragon, which he calls the last master, to seize the right to be master of its own world. It wins freedom from duty.
But, and this is a huge, but the lion is still defined by the thing it's rejecting.
That is the crucial distinction. The lion is a robber of old values. It's defined by its fight. It hasn't actually created any new values of its own yet. It has just smashed the old chains.
It overcomes the thou shalt, But it hasn't yet discovered the I will?
Perfectly put. The lion clears the path. It's essential. But if you stop at the lion stage, you just end up with nihilism. You have the freedom to destroy, but you have nothing to build.
And you just stay angry and reactive.
You stay bitter. You stay reactive to the memory of the dragon you just killed. And a lot of revolutionaries and critics, Nietzsche would say, get stuck at the lion stage. They mistake negation for creation.
Which brings us to the final and most important, metamorphosis. The stage that actually points toward the Overman's future. The child. The kind.
Yes, the child.
What does the child have that this powerful roaring lion doesn't?
The child is the spirit of radical innocence, and importantly, forgetting. It's unburdened by the past, it's forgotten all the heavy duties the camel carried, and it's forgotten the destructive war the lion fought.
It's a clean slate.
It's a new beginning. A game. A Spiel. And a self-rolling wheel. Ein ausgeruhendes Rad.
A self-rolling reel. So it moves on its own impulse? It's not being pushed by duty or reacting against anything?
Exactly. The child is the true creator. It embodies the holy Yesing, the Heiliges Ja-Sagen. Where the lion won freedom from something, the child uses that freedom to create its own world.
It wills its own will.
It wills its own will. It understands that you don't find values out in the world. You create them, and you do it through joyful, playful creation, the Spiel des Schaffens. Life becomes a game, but a deeply serious one, where you invent your own rules and live by them.
So if we were to put this in more modern terms, the camel is the dedicated student who learns all the rules.
Yes.
The lion is the rebel or the critic who tears down the old system.
Right.
And the child is the independent artist or the entrepreneur who just builds a new world based on their own vision.
That's a perfect analogy. The final stage is all about embracing that creative flow, free from guilt, free from duty, free from reaction. And this purity of will, this total affirmation, is what allows the spirit to eventually pass the final test, the really terrifying one we'll get to later, eternal recurrence.
This journey of self-creation, it must fundamentally change how we think about morality, right?
Huh.
If the goal is to become this unique, creative individual, then morality can't be a one-size-fits-all rulebook.
It absolutely cannot. Zarathustra is so insistent on this. True virtue has to be unique to you. The moment you share its name with the crowd, you become heard. Heard.
So if your virtue is defined by what society agrees is good, it's not really your own, it's just conformity.
It's conformity. If you say your highest value is, say, honesty, but your definition of honesty is just the conventional one, it's cheap, has to be your own difficult singular rule. It has to be your personal destiny, your verhängnis.
So bound up with who you are that you would live and die for it.
And this unique virtue isn't born from suppressing your natural drives. It's about transforming them. Your passions, which traditional morality always called evil, they become your virtues when you attach your highest goal to them.
Okay, so if I have a really strong passion, like pride or even anger, instead of trying to crush it,
you channel it. You harness that raw energy and aim it toward creating the Overman. That passion becomes a will to destruction, will zum Untergang, but the destruction of your current lesser self.
and an arrow of longing, fail their Sehnsucht for the future.
Precisely. You use the brute force of your passions as the engine for your own self-transcendence. He even argues that having one powerful virtue is better than having many small ones because it focuses the spirit. It creates more of a knot where your destiny hangs.
It sounds like a kind of hyper-focused sense of purpose that uses every part of you, even the so-called dark parts.
It's the ultimate fusion of purpose and instinct. Nothing inside you is left dormant or stigmatized. Every ounce of energy is channeled toward that future self.
Which brings us to one of his most, let's say, controversial teachings, his total condemnation of Nächstenliebe.
Neighbor love. Yeah. He sees it as a weak, bad form of self-love. A schlechte Liebe zu euch the Stell.
I mean, that just flies in the face of millennia of Western ethics. Love thy neighbor is foundational. Why does he call it bad?
He says it's born of fear, it's born of self-flight. People rush to their neighbors because they cannot stand to be alone with themselves. They can't endure the solitude that's required for deep self-creation.
So they seek distraction. They seek affirmation from the crowd.
And in doing so, they make a virtue out of their own psychological weakness. His line is devastating. You do not love your neighbor. You flee to him because you fear yourself.
So instead of mastering themselves, they're just looking for mutual reassurance. It's a kind of spiritual avoidance.
It is, and it breeds conformity. If you love your neighbor because he's just like you, you're only loving the small, comfortable herd version of yourself. And so Zarathustra counsels the opposite. He advises farthest love, Fernstenliebe.
Farthest love. And flight from the neighbor.
Yes. Next in Flift. Your love should be aspirational. It should be directed toward what is more beautiful than you, toward the ghost that runs on ahead of you.
So it's love for the future. Love for the Overman. A love that demands striving, not comfort.
It's a love for potential, for a grand goal that justifies your sacrifices. And when it comes to actual human connection, he doesn't praise the neighbor, he praises the friend.
And the friend must be your best enemy, bester feigned. That's a powerful paradox.
For Zarathustra, true friendship is a relationship of struggle and equality. He says you should be closest to your friend when you contradict him, when du im Widerstrebst.
Because that conflict tests your strength, it refines your will.
It's an act of co-creation. You are Mitschaffende co-creators. And this love, which is based on conflict and mutual respect, he says, is superior to the blind, possessive love of the woman who he suggests, in this context, is not yet capable of this kind of friendship, knowing only a love that is unfair and blindly protective.
Following this theme of necessary hardness, he also has a pretty challenging view on justice, especially for judges.
His command to judges is, by our standards, really disturbing. He says they should only condemn out of pity, not out of revenge. And the real purpose of their judgment must be to justify their own remaining life by loving the Overman.
Wait, justify their own life? How does condemning someone else justify the judge's life?
Because they're supposed to see the criminal not as a moral villain, a sunder, but as an enemy, a fiend, or as a sick person, a cranker. They're seeing a failure of the human bridge. They should mourn the criminal's inability to overcome himself.
So the act of judging becomes an affirmation of their own path toward greatness by seeing what happens when that path fails.
Exactly. They must never use the law for personal satisfaction or revenge. It's a reframing of the entire act.
And then there's his critique of pity, Mitleiden.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're taught that pity is this high moral virtue, and he calls it a weakness, a great danger.
He sees Mitleiden, literally suffering with, as an intrusion. He argues that the pity of the pitying person often hides something darker. Either it's their own fear, or it's a kind of lust, a woolist, to watch others suffer because it makes them feel superior or more secure.
So true. Great love has to be above pity.
It must be above pity, because pity diminishes the sufferer.
How so?
It intrudes on their shame. And shame is necessary for that great contempt that leads to self-overcoming. Pity comes in and offers cheap comfort. It stops the person from feeling the full, terrible weight of their failure, and in doing so, it robs them of the fuel they need to transcend. Pity just prolongs the sickness.
Wow. Okay, so if the path is that difficult, the enemies must be monumental. Let's turn to the forces Zarathustra thinks are actively holding back the Overman.
He starts with the preachers of death, the yellow and the black. These are the people whose own weariness with life leads them to preach resignation. They're the ones who have concluded that life is only suffering, das Leben ist nur Leiden.
And he often calls them the superfluous, the viel zu vielen, too many.
Yes. And he doesn't see them as evil, necessarily. He sees them as fundamentally tired. They lack the inner substance, the courage, the creative spark to make their own meaning, so they glom onto doctrines that justify their desire to give up.
They can't even rest or amuse themselves properly?
They lack the inner content for it, and his message to them is incredibly harsh. He basically says, if life is only suffering for you, then get rid of it yourself, but do not preach this crippling weariness to others who are still trying to climb.
Then you have the big institutional enemy, the state, which he calls the new idol, the new guts.
Yes, and the state is dangerous because it's a cold monster that just swallows individual greatness. It's the place where everyone loses themselves, and the slow, collective suicide is what gets called life.
How does it seduce people?
It offers security. It offers a collective purpose. It promises divine honors. It buys the appearance of virtue from its heroes to lure in the masses, and in the process, it makes real, risky individuality seem pointless.
So it institutionalizes that fear of being alone that he already condemned with neighbor love. You flee the chaos of yourself and you hide in the false order of the crowd.
And it steals, this is a key point. Zarathustra says the superfluous who flock to the state, they steal the works of the inventors and the treasures of the wise, and they call their theft education. Bildung.
It waters everything down.
It homogenizes genius for mass consumption. So he advises the strong soul to flee from the stench of this idolatry, to pursue klein Armuth, small poverty. Possess little, so that you are possessed by little. True freedom demands independence from the state's empty promises.
Beyond the state, there's a deeper, more philosophical enemy. His ultimate demon, the spirit of gravity, the Geisterschwer.
Yes. If the state is the political devil, gravity is the psychological one.
What is it exactly?
It's the great cosmic force that makes life seem heavy, tedious, a burden. It's that internal whisper of "thou shalt" that the camel obeyed and the lion fought. It is the absolute antithesis of lightness, of joy, of play. It's the voice that says, life is hard, you must be serious, you must accept your fate.
So how does this spirit of gravity show up in, just everyday life?
It's every time you choose security over risk, every time you obey a rule you don't believe in just because it's easier. It's the weight of tradition that tells you this is how things are done. It's the force that pulls you down into the herd.
So if gravity's the enemy, the counterforce has to be lightness. He calls it the way of the bird. Vogelart.
To be light, to be flying, to be dancing. Zarathustra's wisdom, he says, is like a trembling sail passing over the sea, seeking freedom, and he's so insistent on this. A day without dancing is a lost day.
And that's not just about, having fun. Dancing is a symbol.
It's the ultimate symbol of the body's joyful affirmation of itself. It's perfect self-control combined with perfect freedom, completely free from the burdens of history or duty.
And this lightness is essential for creating anything new. You have to have chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star, a Tanzenden skern.
That's his core creative statement. To create a beautiful new self, you have to embrace internal chaos and risk. You can't do it from a place of perfect order and safety, and your ultimate weapons against the spirit of gravity are laughter and mockery.
He says wisdom is a woman, and she only loves a warrior.
A brave, mocking, deep-souled warrior. When you can laugh at the things that oppress you, the rules, the duties, the fears, you assert your absolute sovereignty over them.
Which brings us to the engine behind all of this, the core metaphysical drive of all existence, the will to power, the will zur Macht.
Yes. Wherever Zarathustra looks at any living thing, this is what he finds. And we have to be really careful here. It's not just a desire for political control or domination. It's a cosmic drive.
What is it driving toward?
It's the deep fundamental urge of all life to overcome itself. Was sich immer selber überwinden muss. It's this generative, unquenchable life will. It isn't just trying to survive. It wants to grow, to expand, to discharge its strength, to impose its meaning on the world.
And he specifically rejects the idea that life is driven by a mere will to existence. The Willen zum Dasein, simple self-preservation.
He rejects it completely because the will to existence is static. It's passive. He asks, how can something that already exists logically will to exist? It just is. Survival is a necessary condition, of course, but it is not the ultimate goal.
The will to power is active. It's dynamic.
It's insatiable. It is willing to risk existence for the sake of overcoming, for the sake of becoming more. Life, he says, is constantly playing a dice game with death for the chance to increase its power.
So even something like obedience, which we saw in the camel, is actually a manifestation of the will to power.
Precisely. Even the will of the servant contains the will to be master over something even weaker. All of life is a kind of obedience, but it's an obedience driven by the ultimate will to dominate, to be a master Herrsein.
So all of human activity, art, science, morality.
All of it. He sees them all as competing wills to power, different strategies for imposing a meaning or an order on the chaos of existence. They aren't searches for objective truth. They are creative acts of will.
So it's the drive that creates values in the first place.
Yeah.
Because we value what is difficult, what is necessary for life to overcome itself.
That's it. And our intellect, our reason, it's just the herald of life's struggles. It serves that fundamental drive to become more.
This discovery of the will to power, it leads Zarathustra to his final, ultimate challenge. The most terrifying and, in the end, the most affirming idea in the whole book.
The abysmal thought, eternal recurrence.
And this vision comes to him at a gateway, a place called the Augenblick, the moment.
At this gateway, two infinite paths meet. One stretches eternally backward into the past. The other stretches eternally forward into the future. Time is not a straight line, it's a circle.
And the question that emerges from this vision is just. It's crushing.
It's the heaviest weight. The question is, if this gateway, this moment, lies on a circular path, and everything that can happen has already happened an infinite number of times before, must not this moment and everything in it come back again? Müssen wir nicht ewig wiederkommen?
Must we not eternally return?
That is the philosophical terror. It means that every single joy, every single moment of weakness, every suffering, every casual word, every mistake, every petty victory, you must live it again. in the exact same order, an infinite number of times.
An infinite loop of your one life. Why is that so horrifying?
Because it's the ultimate test of affirmation. If you've lived a life of regret, of weakness, of mediocrity, the life of the last man, this thought is absolute hell. You would scream in horror at the idea of repeating your smallness forever.
And in his vision, Zarathustra sees this horror made real. He sees a shepherd.
An everyman. And this shepherd is choking on a heavy black serpent that has crawled into his throat.
The serpent is the thought itself.
The serpent is eternal recurrence, the blackest, heaviest burden of time. And Zarathustra is horrified, and he cries out to the shepherd, "Bite! Bite off its head."
It's a command for active overcoming. You can't let the horror paralyze you.
You have to reject the paralysis. And the shepherd bites. He bites off the serpent's head, spits it out, and he jumps up, transformed.
And he laughs.
He laughs, but it's a laugh that was, as Nietzsche writes, not a human laugh. That transformation is the entire key to the Overman. To truly affirm eternal recurrence means you have lived your life with such complete, joyful self-overcoming that you would shout yes to living it again and again and again forever.
That non-human laugh is the sound of the ultimate jaw-sagging. The heroic yes to everything, the chaos, the horror, all of it.
It's the final affirmation.
So if eternal recurrence is the final exam, and the Overman is the one who passes it with a laugh, where does that leave everyone else? Zarathustra gives us some pretty sharp warnings, starting with the figure who represents the opposite of greatness.
The last man. This is his cautionary tale for where our culture is heading. The last man is the one who says, "We have invented happiness," and then he blinks.
He blinks.
What does that mean?
It's a sign of shallowness, of a lack of depth or wonder. The last men are masters of comfort, of behagen. They've made the world small and manageable and, above all, not stressful.
They avoid conflict. They avoid anything that requires that great contempt for oneself.
Exactly. They've lost the ability to despise themselves, which is the engine of all growth. They seek quick reconciliation so they don't get indigestion. They think being sick or mistrustful is a sin.
They work for a living, but they make sure their entertainment isn't too taxing.
And they want to be neither rich nor poor, because both of those states involve too much hardship. They're the absolute peak of comfortable mediocrity. And in pursuing that comfort, they lose the ability to create.
Completely. Zarathustra warns that the time is coming when man will no longer be able to give birth to a star. Because to be creative, you have to have chaos in oneself. Chaos and Sif to give birth to a dancing star. The last man has achieved too much order, too much sterility. They're too small to generate anything new. Their happiness is a form of spiritual death.
But Zarathustra doesn't just scorn the last man. He also gathers this fascinating, tragic group of characters he calls the higher men, the Ubermenschen.
Yes. This group includes a king, a soothsayer, the ugliest man, the last pope. They're all seekers, but, and this is so important, they are all failures on the path to the Overman.
They're the struggling bridge, but they're not the destination.
Exactly. They are crippled, spiritually or intellectually, by the very old values they tried but failed to overcome. He says they're covered in the signs of the past, and these signs painted over with new signs. You can't quite tell what they are.
Let's take one. The last pope. He's abandoned God, so he's a step ahead. But why is he still a failure?
Because he can't escape the gravity of the past. He confused his own exhaustion with the death of God. He still carries the posture of reverence. He only finds meaning in the absence of his old master, instead of becoming his own master in true solitude.
So they're all stuck somewhere in the middle. They're better than the herd, but they haven't made it to the child stage.
They're still seeking relief from the world, not embracing its terror. They're looking for safety.
So what is Zarathustra's hard teaching for them?
His command is just absolute hardness, weird at heart. Become hard. He tells them their bravery should be for a worthy enemy, for a noble fight. The good war, he says, sanctifies every cause.
So hardness means resisting that temptation for pity, for comfort, and fighting for your own self-created values.
And your thou shalt is no longer an external command, but an obedience to your own self-chosen higher goal.
So if we have to create these new values, how does that actually play out in real life? In things like, say, marriage?
He completely reframes marriage. The ihe. He strips away all the romantic and legal stuff. For him, marriage should be the will of two people to create one thing that is more than the two of them.
It's a tool for propagating upward.
Upward, not just forward. It's an act of shared reverence for a common higher will. It's a vehicle for creating the Overman. It's a metaphysical project, not just a social contract.
And this same kind of thinking, this commitment to a difficult future, it also applies to teachers and their followers. He warns the creator against having followers.
He says the creator must beware of followers because they always spoil the whole thing. They don't have what he calls long courage. They just want the teacher's answers instead of doing the hard work of finding their own questions.
So he has to teach them to lose him so they can find themselves.
Otherwise, they're just another victim of that bad neighbor love, clinging to someone else to avoid being alone.
Which ties back to the nature of truth itself. He says the good people, the conventional people, they never speak the truth.
Because their goodness is a sickness of the spirit. They compromise. They obey the old rules. So they never go through the terrifying internal struggle you need to go through to create a new truth.
And what does creating a new truth require?
It requires the reckless daring, the long mistrust, the disgust, the cutting into the living, das Schneiden ins Lebendige. You have to be willing to dissect reality, to challenge the comfortable consensus. He says all knowledge has grown up next to a bad conscience because the true seeker always has to challenge what is safe and good.
The story then culminates in Zarathustra's own personal breakthrough. He overcomes his last sin.
His last sin, pity for the higher man. He realizes that feeling sorry for them was holding him back from his own work, his seinem Werk.
This shift marks the arrival of what he calls der große Mittag, the great noon.
The great noon. The moment when humanity stands at the midpoint on the tightrope between the animal and the Overman. And Zarathustra himself is now ripe. Rafe. He's overcome all his internal enemies. He's achieved total self-affirmation. He's finally ready to create.
And the final expression of this total affirmation is laughter and dance.
Yes, he insists on it. Dancing and laughing are the final, most complete expressions of victory over the spirit of gravity. He says every good thing approaches its goal crookedly, like a cat arching its back before it leaps. And all good things laugh.
Which leads to that ultimate decree.
False be every truth which was not accompanied by at least one laughter.
That one sentence just torpedoes centuries of somber, guilt-ridden philosophy and religion.
It does. If your truth makes you heavy and joyless, it's a false truth. And Zarathustra's final state is one of blessing and yes-saying, sedninder und jas agender to the world's eternal chaos and innocence. He teaches that chance, Zufall, and innocence unshould stand over all things, making life a dance floor for divine chances.
So we've followed Zarathustra's entire journey, from the mountaintop down into the world and finally to this great noon. We've seen the spirit shed the burden of the camel, fight the dragon as the lion.
And finally, affirm its own creative power as the child, ready to laugh in the face of eternal recurrence. The core message is not about finding salvation somewhere else. It's about creating meaning right here. The gold isn't in heaven. The heart of the earth is of gold. Das Herz der Erde ist von Gold.
And the engine of life, that will to power, is this constant, risky drive to overcome yourself. So the ultimate challenge for you, the listener, isn't really what you should do. It's the question Zarathustra poses. Frei wozu?
Free for what? The path demands finding your own singular virtue and having the courage to smash the old moral tables that no longer serve your creative will.
So if the heart of the earth is gold and life is the drive to overcome itself, what old, burdensome values must you shatter today to reveal the gold inside you? And what new personal value will you joyfully create, ready to affirm its eternal return?
That radical act of self-creation, that is the challenge of Zarathustra.